Hey, what's up everybody? It's Travis with Inglorious, Bass-ter, and today we are going to be talking about fishing rods. This is going to be part one of a series of fishing for beginners. We're going to concentrate on bait casters because those are the ones that have more learning curve, let's call it. So what we'll be doing is we're going to go through a lot of things fishing, from really basic beginner stuff all the way up to competitive fishing on a bass boat. So stick around, this is part one, and we're going to be talking fishing rods today.
We're in pursuit, we're in pursuit.
Okay, so now that we found the most horrible lighting conditions possible, let's take the cover off the boat. We'll start getting into fishing rods. See, that didn't take long at all. Okay, as you can see here, we have quite the variety of rods and reels strapped down to the deck here. It may look like a lot, but really it's not when you're tournament fishing. You don't want to spend all day retying baits, and you know, different rods, different reels work better on certain types of lures. So there's a reason for having so many there. And let me take a seat here and we'll start talking about these things. Okay, so we're gonna call this take two, because I realized 15 minutes into my little speech on fishing rods that I had somehow switched my camera over to burst photo and didn't record any of the conversation. So let's try it again, shall we? Now there's some key pieces of information that you're going to need when selecting rods. A bait casting rod is different than a spinning rod, and there's an obvious way to tell one from the other. Here's the obvious way to tell one rod from another, is that on a spinning rod, this first line guide is going to be very big. Pretty much all the way through, up to and including the tip, your ring size is going to be bigger. That's because of how the line comes off the reel. It's sort of coming off it's not unspooling from the reel, it's sliding off the top. So as it's uncoiling, it needs that extra bit of room so that there's not as much resistance, so that you can cast better. On a bait casting rod, the line guides are smaller. That you can get them even smaller than that. They're super low. Let me just put this in your face for a second. They're super low profile rings, and that's because of, as you cast with this, the reel's actually moving. It's unspooling and not just floating off the end of it. So bait casting rods are much better for casting. They're much better for a lot of reasons. I don't have anything against spinning rods at all. Obviously, I own at least one, and that's what I grew up throwing on. But once you get used to the bait caster, you'll see the advantages. Spinning rods are still better in certain situations, so that's why I have at least one on the boat. Also, because if I'm taking friends or family fishing that aren't familiar with bait casting rods, we're going to set them up on the spinner that they're used to, so that we don't spend our day on the lake getting rid of backlashes. We'll talk a lot about backlashes. I'm pretty good at them when we start talking more about reels. So for rods, there's certain key pieces of information that are going to be printed on the rod itself. I don't know how well that's coming up on the camera. The things that you need to know are going to be your length, your backbone, which is called power, and your action. Not all rods will tell you what the action is. So this particular rod right here, which is a loose Mark Rose Signature Series Speed Stick. I actually bought this rod and reel combo at a Walmart for around $55, $60. I was working out of town. I wanted to fish a local lake. I didn't have any gear with me, so I pulled this one off the shelf. Lew's has a good reputation. This is not my favorite rod reel combination. I seem to get a lot more backlashes on this than I do some of my other reels, but maybe that's just me. So anyway, back to the rod. This is a 6'6", medium heavy power, fast action rod. 6'6", obviously being the lake. Now, when we talk about power, you can go anywhere from ultralight all the way up to extra heavy. And what that is basically telling you is the backbone. So as we put a little curve on this, the medium heavy is talking about the backbone. That's how much flex that the rod has in it. When it starts talking about action, this one is a fast action, that's talking about the tip. The faster the action, the lighter the tip. Depending on what you're throwing, that's an issue. We'll talk more about that when we get a little bit more into lures, but some of the other key pieces of the information, it will tell you what pound test to use. Now that's really going to vary on what type of line that you're using, whether it's fluorocarbon, whether it's braid, or whether it's copolymer or monofilament. Just don't overload your reel. We'll talk more about this. But what I think is the most important piece of information on here is your lure weight. This one's rated for 3/8 to 3/4 of an ounce. The reason that is important is it's depending on what you're casting. You want your lure weight, your overall rig weight, to be in that range. And that's because of the way that the pole loads up. When people start talking about how it loads up, it's how it's flexing as you're coming through your cast. So as you're casting, you want your tip to bend so that it's got that elasticity in it to throw your rig even farther. If you're throwing something that's too light, what's going to happen is you're not going to get any distance. And if you're throwing overhand and you release where you would normally release, the lure's still going to be penduluming on the line because it didn't get that whipping action. And what happens is that thing hits the water right in front of you and causes a backlash. If you're casting side hand, what happens, I usually cast to the side, so I'm loading it up like a baseball bat. If you're casting to the side and you're releasing at what you think is straight in front of you, that thing's going to take about a 90-degree turn to the left. So you're trying to cast into shore, you end up casting parallel to shore, and that's because the lure weight is too light for the rod that you're using. On the other end of the spectrum, if you are casting something that's too heavy, so this is rated for up to 3/4 of an ounce. If I was throwing a 2-ounce drop shot weight on it, I'm going to have a problem. Not saying that you can't do it, but you would have to be very gentle with it. If you loaded that thing up to cast it a mile with a 2-ounce drop shot weight, chances are you're going to break the tip right off that rod. And we put that in the category of things not to do. So, I'll give you a few examples of what I have rigged right now for a tournament that I'm going to be fishing this coming Saturday. This one I've got rigged up for a drop shot. I've kind of made a mess of it. And we'll start talking about drop shotting and different techniques. I don't actually have the drop shot weight on there, but this is what I'm using. This is the Lew's speed stick, speed spool combo. This is rated for up to 3/4 of an ounce. I have 3/4 ounce drop shot weights. So with the additional weight of the hook and whatever bait I have on it, it's going to be a little on the heavy side, and I'm going to want to remember that when I cast. This big beast I don't know if I need to say anything about the quality of Lew's. They run the gamut. They have very inexpensive combos, and they get well up into the expensive range too. You don't have to buy, I think the most expensive rod reel combo I have on the boat right now is probably in the $350 to $400 range. And then something like that Lose was in the $50 to $60 range. This rod and reel are both Cast King. Cast King I've been very happy with. They are not super expensive and the quality seems to be there. They've been reliable. I don't have a lot of backlash problems with the reels, and the rods have been good to go. So this is a Cast King. This rod is a Royal Legend. This is a big monster. This is a 7'6", fast action, extra heavy power. So it's very long, it's very stiff, but it has quite a bit of tip in this one. This is good. Primarily what I use this one for would be jigs, things that I'm going to be throwing into deep, heavy cover where you're going to need a little oomph to get the fish out of the cover up onto the surface and keep it on the surface as you bring it into the boat. So that's basically what this is for. It's for, you know, flipping, casting, pitching into heavy cover. And I have a really high speed reel, which again we'll get into when we do reels. What I've got rigged up on here is a little unconventional for this particular rod reel combo. This is a deep diving crankbait. It dives to 25 feet. The reason that I throw it on this rod is because I can cast it a mile. And when you're casting deep diving crankbaits, you want to get it far out because it's going to take some work to get that crankbait down to the range that you want it to be swimming in. So the further you can get it out, the more time you're going to spend in that part of the water column. This is also a very fast reel. 9.3 to 1 is extremely fast. That's the gear ratio. The more important thing to know, and sometimes you're going to have to go on your own and actually test it for yourself, is the retrieval rate. The retrieval rate is how much line that you're bringing in for one crank of the reel. We'll talk more about that in reels. But with what I've got on here now, I can get it out there quick. I can get it down to its depth. This rod's a little long and a little stiff to get a great feel of the crankbait. When you're going deep like that, take whatever help you can get. The next one I will show you, this is also a Cast King rod and reel. Cast King Royal Legend reel on a Peregrine 2. This is a two-piece rod. I'm not a fan of two-piece rods. The reason that I have this is because I work out of town a lot. When I'm on a project out of town, I like to bring backpack full of tackle and a rod with me, and need a two-piece rod so that I can get it into the cab of the boat. As we're talking about getting bang for your buck, favorite fishing, there's still quite a few people that haven't heard of favorite fishing. If you watch a lot of YouTube channels where they're fishing, you'll hear about it quite a bit more often. I am really happy with all the favorite fishing gear that I have. This is the Defender. It's damn nice looking rod. I have it paired up with a, oh no, this one is this rig here is a Abu Garcia Rebo SX. This is probably my most expensive rig right here. Currently have it set up. I got there is a keel weighted swim bait, and I've got a craw on it. I'm not sure how much I'm going to use this in the upcoming tournament, but if I am going to use it, I want it to get down deep. I'm going to dead stick it. It's winter time. We'll talk more about things like that when we get into technique. This is 7'4", 3/8 to 1 ounce. It is fast action. It is, I believe, medium heavy. Yes, it is medium heavy and fast action. The thing that I like about these favorite fishing rods is there's a ton of backbone, and the tip really is soft. I get great feel on this one. Have nothing but good things to say about favorite. Next up, this is Abu Garcia. This is also a combo I bought. I am not sure where I bought it, and I think this was also in kind of in that $50 to $70 range. This is the Abu Garcia Vengeance rod. with the Abu Garcia Pro Max reel on it. I might have paid more like $100 for this one. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on this. This one is 7 foot, medium heavy, 3/8 to 1 ounce. This one does not tell me what the action is, but there's a way to find out. If you put the pole on the ground and bend it over at the tip, you see almost all of the bend is in the tip. A heavier rod with slower action, when you bend it, it's going to have more of a rounded curve all the way through it. As you can see, it's barely flexing at the bottom and flexing a ton at the top. That's fast action. So if it doesn't say actually on the rod, that is how you can find it. And I already showed you the lose, so that's what I'm going to be running in this tournament. If I was to only have one rod and reel, and price not being a factor, if I was only going to have one that I think is the most versatile, that you can throw the most different kind of baits on, it's going to be right in the 7 foot range on the rod, with like the medium heavy fast action. Big fan of that. That's probably the most versatile rod that you're going to get. From the 6'10" to the 7'2" range, I would just go right at 7 feet, me personally. And for reels, I would go with a gear ratio of about 7.1 to 1. We'll say that's about 60% into the range of most. Like that Casking is 9.3 to 1, and I read somewhere recently that someone came out with a 10.3 to 1. That is too fast for most things other than jigging. So that's the type of reel that you want to pair up with the right rod, and you're going to want something a little bit heavier. But for overall, anything from jigging, swim baits, crank baits, stick bait, whatever you want to throw, you can do almost everything on a 7 foot, medium heavy, fast action with 7.0, 7.1 to 1 gear ratio range. That would be your best bet if you're only going to buy one rod and reel. The more different things that you're going to try to throw, the more rod and reel combinations you're going to want to have. You can get away with a lot on one rod, but like I said, unless you want to spend your entire fishing day tying and retying stuff every time you want to change baits, you're better off just having more rods and reels. But for one, especially in a situation where you're going to go backpacking or you're walking a long way, the one to have, that's it. 7 foot, medium heavy, fast action with a 7.0 or 7.1 to 1 reel. Anyway, that's good. That's going to conclude our brief little lessons on bait casting rods. There are many brands on the market, and many of them are really good. I'm a bang for your buck guy. Like I said, I'm trying to win some tournaments out here, and I still just love to fish. So I'm a working man. I have no sponsors, as you can tell by my staggeringly long list of about 15 subscribers. Yeah, like and subscribe, by the way. My dollar has to stretch. I think most of you can probably relate to that. So I'm taking care of my equipment, except for a couple that I broke the tips off of, and trying to get the most that I can out of it. I fish on a small boat. I don't have a big rod locker. I can't take 20, 30, different rigs with me. I'm also fishing with a partner, so there's only so many poles you're going to fit on a little boat before you're tangling everything up, stepping on stuff, breaking stuff. We don't want that. So for now, I'm sticking with 6. And that gives me some options. And I can, if I want to switch from one bait to the other, I can do so quickly, saving time, a limited amount of time to fish in the tournament. I hope that you enjoyed this little lesson here. There's going to be more to come. I'm going to be doing reels in the next one. I'm trying to keep these as short as possible. Reels in the next one, and then we will probably go to fishing line and go over a few knots. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.